is what our county government are supposed to do. And I feel it is only fair to give governors what is due to them. We can't always start a conflict with our governors. Whether they perform their duties or not is another thing altogether. But what is due to them should be theirs, and money should follow, and these roles should be cascaded to our devolved units, Mr. Speaker. If you look at one of the roles of my authority, regional authority, you will see quite a big overlap in mandate: conservation and preservation of natural resource issues, database management, and many others. That is also to the national government in some way. So soon we are going towards conflict of laws. We are trying to legislate so much to the extent we will be in a spot where our laws shall be at conflict with time. One other issue is their boards. We are talking of a leaner government so that we can at least save money and resources, so that our economy can at least recover. I saw in the proposal a board of directors of over 13 or nearly 13. That is too big for decision making. It will be a good area for conflicts in managing the same organizations, and I believe they would have had a better, leaner boards, Mr. Speaker. One other issue, the nomenclature. What is a river authority? Where does it start and where does it end? When you take of Tanavi, these go into the coast, and then the Coastal Development Authority picks up. Then you'll ask yourself, how do they come up in naming these zones? I belong to Ewasonyiro North Development Authority. Ewasonyiro has no impact at all in my constituency. I would have rather been categorized or named otherwise. It has no relevance. Look at Mount Kenya. Mount Kenya is the source of all rivers, which go into the Indian Ocean. They flow, traverse the entire nation, and I have not seen Mount Kenya Development Authority. Whereas Nairobi in itself is the city. So developmentally, there is an ambiguity. What is a developmental authority, and where does it encompass? Where is the limit? Where does it start, and where is it ending? Without much ado, I'll be frank to say I entirely oppose this bill, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
The Honorable Mili Odhiambo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I wish to indicate that I support with amendments. Mr. Speaker, the reason I wish to support is because this bill seeks to consolidate the authorities into one bill. And Mr. Speaker, what I was wishing the sponsor would have done and the drafters would have done would have been to also give it some legislative elegance, because I see a lot of repetition, that you find the same roles that are given the various authorities are almost cut and paste. So there is really no reason in a digitized world and in a progressive world why we should go that way in terms of doing this bill. So I'll be proposing amendments that will be making it leaner and thinner. But going more into substantive issues, Mr. Speaker, I am very happy with the principles that are enshrined within this bill. Some of them include sustainable use of resources. As a person who is committed to environmental conservation, I think the issue of sustainable use of resources is very important. And if you look at, for instance, the way some of us are using our resources, it's a challenge. It's unfortunate that there's a bill that came up on natural resources that has failed, but I think that's one of the things that we need to look at. For example, Mr. Speaker, I'd give you an example. There's a lot of construction that is going on in our counties for roads. If you see, there are small hills that are generating what is needed for the roads. And very soon there will be no hills in those areas. that is part of actually what is affecting climate change. And so when we are dealing with issues that talk about sustainable use of resources, it's significant and important for me. Secondly, the issue of promotion of equity in the management of natural resources to ensure equitable access for present and future generations. Mr. Speaker, as a person who is committed to protecting the rights of children, I am very keen on the use of access for present and future generations when we are dealing with resources. And so when this is provided as a value, it's important. The only challenge is that when we are implementing, we forget this. Mr. Speaker, I had hoped for a bolder approach that also streamlines the roles, as had indicated, but also that also ensures that we don't have duplication, both with the counties, national government, and with these authorities. Mr. Speaker, a lot of members have spoken to it, but one of the things I've learned, having been in this parliament for a long time, is that when we have multiple bodies doing the same thing, they actually, one of them or all of them, become cash cows. And that is why even when parliament tries to streamline, you get a lot of resistance, because you will be killing somebody's way of earning money. But I wish we were bolder as a house, and sometimes just take the bull by the horns and kill some of these authorities and give the counties greater mandates. But because I know we are not bold as a house, I will propose amendments that will allow the ones who want to steal, because I'm not USCC. When the USCC wakes up and decides they want to do their job, they will follow and ensure that these people do their works and streamline. Mr. Speaker, one of the other things I'd hope to see is a deliberate attempt to establishing a formula for sharing resources within the regions, so that even when you find that one of the authorities is working within the region and has different regions, how do you ensure that within that region there is equity? I support the inclusion of gender, youth, marginalized community in the management units of the bodies. And I want to somehow agree with Honorable Bayer, and at the same time also agree with the member that that he was raising a point of order for, that yes, we must remember marginalized communities. Coming from a marginalized community myself, Mr. Speaker, I speak to it. I know a lot of people don't consider the low community a marginalized community because of our resilience. We are strong, we work hard, we fight hard, and we do not appear as marginalized. But over the years, the Luo community has been marginalized by economic policies due to the nature of our politics as opposition. And it is interesting to hear a lot of people keep telling us, join the government, yet the same people tell you, we need strong opposition. So Kenya must also make up its mind what they want. That you either choose people who can do good work, so that you don't need an opposition. But if you choose people who are not doing good job, then don't start screaming you want a good opposition. But having said that, I'd also want to say that there are actually regions that have also benefited from resources because of marginalization. And I think as a country we must also look at how far different regions have benefited and whether we are all at the same state. You might find an area that was once upon a time or 20 years ago marginalized is no longer marginalized. My area is of course definitely still marginalized. And then I also speak for the Suba, who is a much smaller community within my constituency that may suffer further marginalization. And on that note, I want to encourage the government that when we are dealing with marginalized community like ours, don't make promises that you don't realize very fast. Like for instance, more recently, the government made a promise to tarmac the Rusinga Ring Road. And for those of us who are very marginalized, we are really waiting with a lot of interest to ensure this is done. But going back to these regional authorities, Mr. Speaker, I'm just wishing again, and I want to agree with, I think it's Honorable Muragara that had talked the last time, that we needed a bold approach to fold up these bodies and give the money to counties, but with enhanced oversight roles, so that we don't devolve corruption. And I want to reiterate that for me that would actually be a better approach. Again, I don't know whether the Mongozo is, that talks about the number of 8, but I'm saying like these bodies are too many, the individuals that are proposed in these bodies are too many, and perhaps we need to streamline, especially of the local communities. I don't understand what you have a whole number of 8 that are coming in. But even within this number of 8, we need to again re-emphasize the issue of inclusion. Mr. Speaker, I would also want to say that one of the things that I've noticed, that this bill speaks a lot about the issue of natural resources. And I've said that it is indeed unfortunate that a bill that was talking about natural resource, and especially sharing, died at, I think, second reading. But this bill talks about natural resources without defining what natural resource is. So I don't know what exactly we are talking about in this bill, because we must ensure that we define what that natural resource is. Mr. Speaker, I'm also wishing that we could bring amendments, and I'll try that we ensure that these bodies, because we are not bold enough to just send them home, undertake programs and projects on climate change adaptation. Because since they're doing programs that have to do with those areas, and these are things that we're talking about as a country, but we don't seem to realize that, for instance, in this country in the last few days, the weather has been extremely hot, which is not very typical. And it's not here. I was in South Africa 2 months ago, and there was a heat wave. And we're actually suffering the effect of climate change. And the only things we want to act on is where we see money, like where there's a low-hanging fruits that we can deal with at individual levels, at leadership levels, at community levels, to ensure that we deal with these issues. Mr. Speaker, I want to complete because I see that my time is up. Mr. Speaker, I don't know if you can just give me 1 minute to conclude.
No, the interests are overwhelming.
It's okay then. With those few remarks, I support with proposed amendments.
The Honorable Julius Meli.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to support this bill. As said by my earlier speaker, Honorable Mili, I would also wish that I'll also propose some amendments. Honorable Speaker, this bill is quite good.